Raise your hand if you do not own a coffee grinder. Raise your hand if you're missing out on a lot of good coffee experiences because you can't buy the whole bean. Now this is one that I actually have never done before, but if this works, this one's life-changing for me. A lot of times you can find better coffee that's only available in whole bean versus pre-ground. Also, it's cheaper to buy the whole bean than the pre-ground, and it's gonna taste better. But I've never wanted to buy a coffee grinder because it takes up space in my cabinet and it only serves one purpose. And yes, I know this is not gourmet coffee, but it's the kind I love. I think we just dump it in and let it go. It already smells way better than pre-ground stuff. The flavor's just there. Say it takes about 2 to 3 minutes of pureeing, but it works. It might be slightly coarser than what you get in a bag, but it's still gonna make a good cup of coffee. Who knew? Food processor as a coffee grinder. We're gonna keep grinding for a couple more. My grandmother would be proud of this next one. In the food processor is where you need to make breadcrumbs. Do not waste that day-old bread or bread that you might just toss in the trash can. Turn it into breadcrumbs. This is way better than the stuff that comes in a can at the grocery store. You don't even have to toast it first because these blades are so sharp. It will turn bread that's even soft in the middle into breadcrumbs. And once you have your breadcrumbs, it's best to store them in the freezer. If you're making true like breadcrumbs, you want them pretty fine, but you can also leave them coarser if you're using it for a topping for a casserole, for example. Breadcrumbs like this are perfect for filling, whether you're making like meatballs, crab cakes, or you can add them to butter and put them on top of a casserole. If you want a crunchier breadcrumb, you can toast them first before storing. There we have fresh, high quality breadcrumbs. These are gonna be perfect in your next recipe that calls for breadcrumbs. This next hack comes in handy when you're in a pinch. You know, I feel like this has happened to everybody, that you're in the middle of a recipe and it calls for powdered sugar, but you don't have any, but you know you've got regular sugar. This is another one I really haven't done, but I'm hopeful. He hasn't let me down yet. Just add your sugar right in and process it till a powder. Like the coffee, I think this is gonna take a little bit of time. I don't know if this is quite the same thing as what comes in a box, but oh, look at the lid. That's powdered sugar on the top. Tastes like powdered sugar. Looks like powdered sugar. Doesn't feel quite like powdered sugar, but it would get the job done in a recipe. Not quite the same, but it works for me. And it beats having to get in the car and go to the store. I feel like you've probably seen this one before, but if you're like me and you like to take shortcuts in baking, the food processor is here to remind us that you don't have to. It is just as easy to make from scratch items right here. For example, pie crust. Pie crust is so easy to make in the food processor, I almost forgot. I'm guilty of buying the pre-made pie dough 95% of the time. But if I'm into that holiday baking or a special occasion, this is when it comes in clutch. All you do is just add your flour to your food processor with a regular blade. And then to that, we're gonna add in cold cubed butter. You could also do shortening or a combination of both. It doesn't really matter, whatever recipe you like, you can, instead of cutting the butter with a fork or a pastry cutter, this is way faster. A little bit of salt. Then you're just gonna pulse it until there's like pea-sized crumbs in there. All right, that's it. Just about 4 or 5 pulses. You just wanna see the butter kind of scattered throughout there like confetti. That's gonna help keep this pie crust nice and flaky. Then we're gonna turn it on, and with the motor running, I'm going to slowly add ice water. You wanna do it until it just comes together. You don't want it to be a full ball or it's gonna be too wet of a dough. It's important to do ice water and ice cold butter shortening. That way, as it bakes, the layers will be nice and flaky because the butter will just kind of melt into the layers as it bakes. When you hear it start to slow down, you're about there. Yep. Then you just turn it onto a floured surface and get it into a disc. You don't want to work it too much. You're not trying to melt that butter, just enough to bring it together. So much easier than using a pastry cutter or a fork. And it took, what, less than 3 minutes to make this? At this point, just wrap it up, keep it chilled, and then you'll be ready to roll, literally. Sort of like the butter and the mayonnaise, we like to control the ingredients that we put in our bodies sometimes. The food processor is the perfect vessel to make homemade nut butters and alternative flours. A lot of times these alternative flours and things are more expensive, but if you've got a food processor, you can turn simple oats that cost $1 into oat flour. We're gonna make peanut butter. These are always buy one, get one free in the store. Peanut butter that comes in the jar on the store shelf, even though I love it, does have some words that we can't even pronounce. Chemicals that we just don't need. You know, this has all those chemicals. I'm making honey roasted peanut butter because I love that. Whole Foods used to have the machine that pumped it out, and it was so good just to eat by the spoonful. So that's what I want to make. You can use just plain unsalted or salted roasted peanuts or almond butter or sunflower butter. You get the point. Just straight into your food processor. About 2 cups of nuts will yield about 1 cup of nut butter. Only thing you need is a little bit of time. This is going to take about 8 to 10 minutes. That was easier than I thought. All you have to do is scrape it down a couple times and then it'll really get going. And it's warm because that engine was going. It's almost like you took the peanut butter and microwaved it. Look how creamy. This could be dangerous. 'Cause I could eat this by the spoonful multiple times a day. Now, yes, it does look like that natural peanut butter in the sense that it's not perfectly fake smooth, but that's pretty doggone smooth. As it cools off a little bit, it's going to firm up. Probably best store it in the fridge. And that's just delicious. I'm going to tell you right now, stop buying that garlic in a jar, otherwise known as jarlic. Sure, it's convenient, but it doesn't taste like garlic. I don't care who you are. Thanks to the food processor, you can make your own. I mean, I'm with you. I hate chopping garlic. You know that. That's why I always use a garlic press. But the easiest thing is to have it already chopped for you, ready to go. This is the best way. You can do as much as you want, and then you can chop it as fine as you want. I hope you didn't look away. That was 10 seconds, and we have perfectly minced garlic. And your hands don't smell. If you use it pretty quickly, and maybe you don't do as much, you can just put it in a jar with a tight-fitting lid. If you want it to last even longer, kind of like your garlic, you can also add in some olive oil here. You'll end up with flavorful oil, and it'll preserve your garlic for longer. You're not gonna buy it anymore, are you? I trust that you won't. I got one for you. Cauliflower rice. Remember this? This is something you should be making in your food processor if you eat this a lot. Buying it from the produce section in those bags already riced, it gets slimy and super stinky. It's a lot more affordable to just make your own, plus it stays fresher longer. If you buy it from the freezer section for about the same price as a whole head, you get about 1/3 as much. Just makes sense to make your own. All you do, pulse it till it's rice-like. This is also just a good thing to add in with regular rice if you're trying to cut carbs or maybe add in some veggies. I feel like we've forgotten about this a little bit, but I'm bringing it back. And then 3 pulses, you have cauliflower rice. I'm even gonna cook it up for you. Fried rice, order up. That's not rice, it's cauliflower. But if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. An oldie but a goodie. Perfection. Our food processor has been a hero so far. Now let me show you how to clean them up a little bit. You know, when you're down to the end, if you mixed something creamy, let's say that mayo or ranch dressing or cheesecake, you still have all that gunk left around your blade and at the bottom of your bowl. It takes forever to scrape it off with a spatula. Plus you don't want to get in there with your hands because you risk cutting yourself. Here's the trick. You get as much as you can out, and then for the rest, pop it back on and let it work. Now it's all on the side and a lot easier to scrape. And you don't have to waste what all was left on there. You might have thrown that out. You left a lot of good stuff in there. You could have let that go to waste. This little baby has worked hard today. Time to clean him up. The best way to really get in all those nooks and crannies inside is to just clean it while it's going. After you've scraped out and gotten out whatever you can, give it one more final spin with warm soapy water. Throw a little water in there, a few drops of soap, and let it go. That works. Just dump out the remnants, one final rinse. Good as new. See? It's a good one. Food processor can be a superhero in your kitchen. Was I right? But you've definitely not been getting the most out of your food processor. You know this appliance takes up a lot of space in your kitchen. Time to make sure it earns its keep. Done my job.